Hello and welcome to the Internet Marketing for Schools podcast. My name is Brendan Schneider, and this is the podcast dedicated to inbound marketing, social media, and branding for schools. My goal is to help you harness the power of the internet to market your school effectively using inbound marketing, content marketing, email, and social media in order to achieve your enrollment goals. Let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to the Internet Marketing for Schools podcast, episode number 12. I'm your host, Brendan Schneider. In today's episode, I'm going to interview Rebecca Moore, who's the Director of Communications at the Randolph School located in Huntsville, Alabama. Rebecca and I connected a few weeks ago, specifically talking about Instagram and the cool things that she's doing at her school with Instagram, and in particular, a project that they launched this year. They did last year and launched it this year. So I don't want to give too much away. I want to let Rebecca explain it in her words. But before we get started, I have a quick announcement I'm excited to share that the Internet Marketing for Schools podcast now has a sponsor, Blackbaud and Whipple Hill. My school is a client, and we've been using their on-suite of products for about a year now to connect our school. I'd like to share some things I like about their enrollment management system on board, which is the admission application. First, it has a beautiful user interface that I think is clean and incredibly effective at allowing me to find what I need to find when I'm in the database. Second thing, the solution is cloud-based, and our database is now mobile responsive, which allows me to access the database cleanly on my iPad or even my iPhone if I want. Third thing, I really like the statistics, which allow me to see how we compare to last year's admission numbers at the click of a button. 4, I love their implementation of what they call a candidate checklist, which allows me to see exactly where a prospective family is in the admission process. And finally, probably the biggest reason, the experience for the family has been fantastic, and I've had more than one prospective family tell me that our online application was so easy to use and understand. So thanks again to Blackbaud and Whipple Hill for sponsoring this podcast, and I hope you'll help me pay some bills and check them out. And you can check them out at whipplehill.com. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm Rebecca Moore, and I'm the Director of Communications at Randolph School.
And tell me a little bit about Randolph School, Rebecca.
Sure. We are a K-12 independent school, and we're located in Huntsville, Alabama. We're a pretty young school. We were started in 1959 with the influx of all the rocket scientists who came to Huntsville at that time, and the school has kind of grown with the town. And
so when you say rocket scientist, you mean literally rocket scientist, right? Yeah.
Literally.
Great.
Yep, the Rocket City.
That's great. Well, anyways, we connected online, and I can't remember if it was in the Facebook group or someplace else, and I was just intrigued by what you were doing with Instagram. So I can't thank you enough for being here, and there's a particular project that we'll talk about towards the end that I think is absolutely fantastic, and I'm excited for you to share with the listeners. So let me do some nitty-gritty stuff first. So when did you launch the Instagram account for Randolph School?
We started it about 2 years ago, and we started it because we had a project that we had been doing that we started 4 years ago of live tweeting our spring trips. We have a program called Interim where grades from 4th grade onwards go on week-long trips in the spring, and we started using social media as a way for the teachers and, in some cases, the older students to share photos of the trips as they happened. And we became aware that kids had started gravitating over to Instagram. So because the hashtags work the same way across both platforms, we were able to just incorporate Instagram into our program.
Okay. And then, so in terms of that Instagram account, do you run it yourself or do you have help?
I do. And we have one person in our advancement office who also posts directly to it.
Okay.
And she's also the person in charge of our alumni program. And she has an alumni Instagram account, and the admissions office has an Instagram account.
So you have 3 on campus?
We do.
Okay. And then, so how has that worked out? You know, in terms of, are you finding enough content? Are people following the same accounts? Can you tell?
I think they're actually they're going to different audiences, and we only have we don't have an alumni Twitter account. We just have the one Twitter account that we use for both alumni and for the school.
Okay.
But the admissions office really wanted to be able to have a a more specific account that they would run, and that might be an account that we would add student ambassadors to at some point.
In terms of giving them the ability to post?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the admission account is really geared towards prospective students?
Yes.
Or families? And then your account is really internal, and then the alumni account is, of course, alums?
Yeah, and we're growing our alumni program, and Lauren, the woman who manages that account, has done a really fantastic job engaging alumni across a broad range of media, and so Instagram is, I think, working well for them. We also have a lot of young alumni who follow the school's account.
Yeah, that makes sense. So as a reminder to everybody listening, if you're out and about or walking while you're listening to this, if you go to the show notes, I will put links to all of these accounts so that you can find the accounts or anything else that we're going to mention in today's episode. So now, you talked a little bit about the audiences that you're trying to reach. Now, how about, do you have a posting frequency set up? Like how many times a day, stuff like that?
We don't. I think I probably average about a post a day, or maybe 4 posts a week. So I don't have a dedicated schedule set up for that yet. In the project that we did last year that we'll talk about a little later, part of that was we had photo challenges, monthly photo challenges. And so I would do a lot of posting at the beginning of the month to kind of jumpstart the challenge.
Talk to me. What's the challenge? What does that mean?
Well, we decided last year that we were going to have the students put our Viewbook together instead of.
So this goes, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
okay, let's save that one because that's the one I want to get all together. That's the one that I think is just so cool. So now, are you using any external tools to help you manage Instagram?
We are. Probably the most valuable tool we're using is IFTTT, which is if this then that. And actually, when you posted that question about Instagram on your blog, that's a tool that I think other schools are using as well. It's fantastic.
I was going to say, what are some of the recipes that you're using?
The recipe that I use with it is that if I like something as the school on Instagram, on any account, it goes to our Twitter feed. And the nice thing about it is that it goes to the Twitter feed with the byline of the person who originally posted it. So that helps me keep track of who to photo credit if we use one of those photos later.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. I haven't, it's funny, I've mentioned it, and I haven't used it that much. I use IFTTT for other things.
What do you use it for?
I use it for, pretty much I've tried to use it for different things, but not Instagram. So something simple as, and this is my trick, so if anybody ever meets my wife, you can't tell her, 2 weeks before our anniversary, remind me. Just little things like that. And then I used to use a lot more recipes in terms of saving photos. Mm-hmm. But then because I'm just pushing out so much stuff, it just became too much. And so I stopped using those right now. And to be honest with you, I've gotten away from it a little bit. But I really like how you're using it. I think as soon as we're done, I'm going to go play with it.
Well, it seemed to work. I had set up another recipe to have stuff go to Flickr, and I haven't used that at all. And one of the limitations of Instagram is that you actually, just in the same way that you can't swipe and expand a photo, you also can't save it the same way that you can with Twitter. And so when you push it to Twitter, then you're able to save it from Twitter to your photo stream or onto your desktop.
Very clever. Okay, that's really cool. I hadn't thought of that. That's very, very cool. One of the tools, I don't know if you've heard of this, just to share, that I've just started playing with our school's Instagram account is Schedugr.am.
Oh, I don't know about that.
So I'll put it in the show notes, but now it's a paid tool, but I don't think it's overly expensive, maybe $15 a month, but it allows me to schedule posts.
Right.
So, so what I've done is I can schedule out posts on Instagram, and it's a huge time saver as we run so many channels. And the other thing I've been able to do is that I've scheduled or started to schedule different times of the day to see if there's if kids are interacting with our posts later at night as opposed to in the morning. And then, again, as we get into school, theoretically, when they're in school doing work. And I'm not sure if there are analytics in there, because I just started using it. But I'll put the link in the show notes and you can check it out.
Okay, that sounds great.
So now, what are kind of your overarching goals with Instagram? And did you have something to start out with, and then as you guys got into it, has that changed?
Well, I mean, I think originally when we set it up, it was really a way to capture the photographs that were happening on the spring trips.
Okay.
And I mean, the funny thing is that when I first came across Instagram, I discovered it as a photo editing tool. Just something to add filters and
Sure, yeah.
And it kept asking me, "Do you want to share this to Facebook?" And I just wasn't interested in all in the in the social aspect of it. So I dropped it and started using Camera Plus.
Okay.
And and came back to it when it was clear that people were actually using it as a communications platform. And I guess the way that it changed was after we'd had all the success with the trip photos. That then was one of the things that gave us ideas about how we could crowdsource pictures for the Viewbook project last year. So it did change in that respect. And what will happen with it this year is a little bit up in the air. We'll see. We've got a few things that we've tried out with it, but we'll have to. I'm going to be feeling my way a little bit, I think, at the start of the year.
Okay, and well, I have some other questions, but let me just jump right in. Talk to me about your Viewbook project.
Okay, let's see. Well, it's funny. I had the idea for something like this for a while, and I had stumbled onto a blog post that you probably saw. It was written several years ago by Shelley Blake-Plock about 21 things that will be obsolete by 2020.
I think I remember that, yeah.
Okay, and I mean, it's interesting looking at it and seeing how things have gone and how much of what he actually said is probably coming true. But number 19 was outsourced publications and web design, graphic design and web design. And we actually have a graphic design program here that started about 5 years ago. And as I was thinking about doing our new Viewbook and trying to figure out how to get more student voice into it, it just seemed obvious that the graphic design class should take a lead in producing this. And so in their classes, they had the advanced graphic design class, came up with the idea for the book, and I worked with an English teacher who teaches 11th grade AP English, the language and composition class, and we talked with the kids about what Viewbooks are and figured out a way for them to write for it that wasn't writing marketing copy, but was actually telling stories about their own experience with the school in their own voices. And so that became the sort of bedrock copy for the book.
Okay.
And then the idea of getting photos, because for the photography classes, they actually need to do most of their photography off campus. So the photography students aren't going around taking pictures on campus. That's not how the program is set up. And because we'd been doing this live tweeting of interim, is what we called it, for the past couple of years, people were already used to doing that and used to connecting with us that way. So we introduced photo challenges every month and asked people to contribute to them and use this hashtag. And by using the hashtag, that was also their way of saying to us, it's okay to use my photo. Because that's an area where you're not really sure sometimes when kids post a picture of school, do they want me to see this or share this or use this?
That's a great point. So was that kind of implicit? Did you walk in saying, hey, if you share this, it could be used?
Yeah.
Okay. So they were fully aware that if they put that hashtag, this was fair game.
We're doing this project. If you'd like to participate, here's the hashtag. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea. Okay, so let me get the workflow. So you did a challenge a month, and then give me an example of what a challenge would be like. What was the challenge?
Okay, well, I'll give you the link after the show if you want to share it, because we galleried it every month on our website.
Okay, cool.
So the first one for August, because we started school today. We start early here.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Anyway, the first one for August was What's Different. And so that was for the starting school month. And then the September one was split a little bit because we really wanted to get the lower school involved, but it's tricky. They just don't have the same access or use of technology. They have classroom iPads, and so they did take some pictures with those, but it's just different than upper school kids who are walking around with smartphones. And the middle school kids were able to participate, but not generally during the school day, because unless they had specific permission, they're not allowed to use phones during the day. So the September challenge was kind of split, and we had a thing about friendship and kindness. And then we did for October, because of ending with Halloween, we did Who Are You?, which was a sort of just big identity question, which I think is fun for schools to take on.
Yeah, that's cool.
And we had a theme every month, and we ended with, in May, the theme was moments. So moments in the school day.
Okay, so then you had the challenge, you would issue it, the kids knew, school knew, and then what was did you use the same hashtag the whole time?
We used the same hashtag for the whole year, which was R Stories 13, so R for Randolph. But then when they did the Viewbook at the end of the year, they ended up using that as the title of the book, so it became Our Stories.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. Okay, do you have it in digital format or any way that we could share it so people could see it?
We should. Right now we're joining the PDF of the cover with the PDF of the body of the book, so I should have that in the next day.
Oh, good. Well, I won't get this podcast up that quickly.
Okay.
So we'll have the link to put in. I think this is such a cool thing. So you really haven't. So will you print the Viewbook as well?
Yeah, it's at the printer right now.
Okay, so it's at the printer now. So people haven't seen it.
People haven't seen it. We have it. We shared the PDF of it at our in-service with faculty, so they've seen it. And so we're going to send it out to everyone in the school currently, because so many people took part in it, and it's almost like a yearbook from last year. It's the only Viewbook I've ever been able to do where we had pictures from the start of the year and at the end of the year, right? Because a lot of times you do your Viewbook and you kind of have to hustle to get spring pictures because you've started earlier in the year or vice versa. But this actually goes from the first day of school all the way to hats in the air at commencement.
Oh, that is so cool. And then now, what's the life cycle of this Viewbook? Is it going to be a couple years, or are you going to do this every year?
We were originally going to do a year. We also had no idea how it was going to go. We had no idea if the kids were going to get into it, how the design was going to be. Was it going to be something that was like, well, that was a great exercise. We're going to shelve this after the year. But they ended up doing a really great job. What happened was the advanced graphic design kids had the brief to sort of come up with the RFP. So it's a small class. It was juniors and seniors, and there were 6 of them. So they split into 3 teams of 2, and they each came up with a sort of concept and a pitch, and they pitched it to the advancement team. And then they also shared it we have an advancement committee of the board, so they got to share it with a wider audience. And we picked one of the designs, which actually we incorporated ideas from the other 2 because they were all really good. And then they had designed the cover and a sample page or 2. And then they took it to the beginning graphic design class, which was, I think, 12 kids, and said, here's what we're trying to do. Here's what we need you to do. And then that class broke into teams, and they each designed 8 pages that go together. And it was really neat. And then the advanced graphic design kids came back and critiqued their first drafts and worked with them to really take the idea a little bit further. Their first layouts were really literal, and so they came up with something that was a little bit more symbolic and less just saying, okay, it's supposed to look like a journal or a travel journal. Here are pictures in a photo album. Right, they had to sort of take it a little bit further than that. And then we had the guy who, we have a designer in town who does our magazine and does a lot of work with us. And he came in and met with them and gave them a critique. He didn't actually do any of the layout for the book. Okay. But we brought him in as just as someone in the business who could talk to them.
So you're killing a lot of birds here. You're getting a very unique Viewbook. The kids are getting a wonderful experience. This is just cool.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun.
This is cool. Now, in terms of the copy in the Viewbook, who was responsible for that?
Okay, so we started with the kids in the AP class, and the way the Viewbook is divided, we had put together sort of 4 characteristics of our school that we thought really differentiated us from any other school in our market. And so the idea was the kids in the AP English class wrote stories about each of the 4 values. So it's relationships, freedom, school culture, and high expectations. So they thought about a time during their time at the school, whether they were here for lower school or, any year, any experience, could be in a class with a coach, with friends, and they wrote a short piece about that. And then we collected pieces on similar themes from kids in other grades. And so the whole book is made up of stories. It's mostly excerpts from stories around those themes. So rather than being organized chronologically, a lot of times, you talk about your lower school program and then you talk about your middle school program and so forth. We didn't separate it. So each of the 4 sections has things about athletics and different grades and extracurricular experiences.
So it was longitudinal K-12. That was the idea. And then do you have a place in the Viewbook that describes that these photos were, cultivated with Instagram?
We have a credits page, and we added the hashtag. And we'll talk more about it on our website and on it, on the page where we've also done the other people that we got in to the Viewbook were alumni. We have some alumni stories, but we really didn't want adult voices. We have a letter from our head of school that introduces the book and talks about the process. And then at the end of it, we have a letter from our admissions office, and we have credits, and that's it from the grown-ups.
Wow! I hope you're going to put this up for the Case Awards. I mean, seriously, I've never heard anything like this.
Well, I don't know if anyone else has done it. I looked around when we started it to see if other schools had samples or similar projects, and I couldn't find one. But maybe someone will come forward and say that they've done it too.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was something similar at a university level. But at an independent school level, not that I would even pretend to be a Viewbook expert or have an idea, but that I can't wait to see it. Now, did you think of maybe leaving it digital and not printing it?
We did. And, in some ways, you have all these conversations. Is it worth printing a Viewbook? People still like to walk out of the admissions office with something in their hands.
Yeah, I agree.
And because it was a student project, it seemed also like that was another good reason to print it and make it a little bit more permanent. And we did make it, we made it smaller, which was something we wanted to try. So it's a 7.5-inch square book. So it has a different feel. And we also did a video of it, which I put together really at the end of the year. The whole idea of their voices and their stories suddenly just demanded having something where you could hear them. So I went around and I audio recorded as many of the kids who had contributed it as I could, and then combined with some of the photos, some that are in the Viewbook and some that aren't, and made a video version of it, which is actually up on our YouTube page now.
Okay, so again, I'll have to get all these links. We'll have them all in the show notes, and some of these I haven't seen, so I'm excited to see these as well. I just think we could stop there, but I'm not. But that's just so cool. I think that's so cool. And now, was there some thought behind having that? Would you say 7.5 by 7.5 square? Because it's like an Instagram photo.
Well, and actually, the square shape really tied in nicely with the Instagram. And I wasn't part of this discussion, but the design teacher told me about it afterwards. When they were thinking about how to tie that in, we picked small because so many of the pictures were crowdsourced and they were going to be low resolution. Yeah. So smaller was better. They liked the small size. It just felt more personal. People can put it in their handbags, and I don't know, that they wanted to go small, and the admissions office loved the idea. Our last Viewbook was 9 by 12 and spiral bound, so very different feel. Yeah. But then obviously the square size worked really well. And what we ended up doing was taking a whole bunch of the photos from Instagram, and there's an inside front cover that opens up into a 2-panel display, which is just tiled like an Instagram feed.
Oh, cool. Now, is there anywhere, did you have one of the pages just be the Instagram camera?
It's funny, the kids in the advanced graphic design class really didn't want to go too heavy on the Instagram idea. They thought it would age, right, that it would look really dated, which is an issue, obviously, with any of these social media platforms that you use. I mean, you can already see it now. Instagram may not make it, for the next 2 years, because, at least for kids, because parents are getting more.
As soon as grandma gets on, I'm off.
And they all have handles like so-and-so's mom. That'll be their Instagram username.
Oh, my gosh.
So
my gosh.
It's funny. It'll be funny to see what happens.
It's kind of like when I talk to prospective families, I say, we love having parents at school, and the only time that parents aren't at school is when it's uncool for you to be there.
Right.
And that's the uncoolness is determined by your own child. So I guess that's the same way with social media channels. When you show up, we leave. Oh, that's too funny. That's too funny. So some nitty-gritty questions again. So this whole really project was built around a hashtag. Can you give some advice about using hashtags with Instagram?
Sure. Well, one of the thing that I had said about it, which was really great, was that the hashtag, anyone who used it was saying I'm participating. Mm-hmm. So it worked really well that way. I like the way that the hashtags work across Twitter and Instagram, and also I guess Tumblr and Facebook. Although I don't know if anyone uses hashtags on Facebook. Yeah. And so it's a really great way to find things. It's worked really well for us when you don't know who's going to be using it and who's going to be taking part. Another place that we've used it is covering sports events. And so if there's like a big championship game or something, hashtags will crop up and you can start following what's happening through those.
Okay.
So that's been good. We were sort of trying to decide where we're going to carry the Our Stories 14 thing into this year, and I wasn't really feeling like we had to do it. It kind of felt like that the Our Stories 13 had a really specific purpose for last year, and we have a new head of school this year, and he's been talking a lot about this idea of we have 2 campuses, and this idea of cohesion and being one school. Mm-hmm. And so this one Randolph hashtag has just cropped up. So I don't know if that's gonna carry for the year or not. But it's a great way, if you have a hashtag like that, to identify things that really matter to you as a community and as a school.
Okay. So who came up with the hashtags? Because we've had difficulty, because if it's kind of our team, it's kind of the adults, and the kids haven't really necessarily latched on all the time. Did the kids come up with those, or did you guys come up with those?
I came up with the Our Stories one.
Okay,
because it's always tricky finding a hashtag, because you don't want it to be like our school teams are the Raiders, but if you do a search for Raider Nation, there's tons of stuff which has nothing to do with us. Yeah. Right. So it's too broad. Mm-hmm. So we try to find ones that are not too hard to figure out or remember, but aren't going to be used, by a lot of different people. Okay. Our one for the Washington, D.C. trip is DC8, which, of course, when you first start searching for it, you get a lot of airplane pictures, but once the kids are all on it, they kind of take it over, and Twitter, I guess, has an algorithm that knows what you're looking for. So
that's good. So again, the IFTTT recipe that you use is anything you send to Instagram goes to Twitter, or anything you like?
That I like on Instagram goes to Twitter.
Okay. And that's just as school. So when you like it as school, it'll go to the school's Twitter account. It's
school's Twitter account. And you can actually, if you look at our Twitter account right now, I liked a bunch of stuff before coming up here to talk to you. And so you can see it'll say the statement that the kid put on Instagram with it, and then have their username. So it's clearly bylined, but it's coming up on the school's feed.
Okay. When we hang up, I will go to your Twitter account and grab a screenshot.
Okay.
And we'll put that in the show notes so people can just see what that looks like. Kind of 2 questions here. And we were talking a little bit before we got on the call, but I want to ask: do you let students post to the account? And I'll kind of merge it in. Do you let teachers post to the account? We do both. Do you do that?
Okay. We don't do either.
Okay.
We have thought about it for admissions. West Virginia University put out this really great thing called the Social Media Solidarity Plan. And in it, they describe how they do social media ambassadors. And we were intrigued by that. And you do a short stint being on Instagram or Twitter for the school. So it would be like a guest post, but maybe for the week. And they might have a specific assignment to cover certain types of things. We have student ambassadors in our 7th through 12th grades, and they do a fantastic job. And we think they could be really effective on social media also, but we haven't yet added them to the accounts. Now we have, for when we do the spring trips, the kids have set up, we had trip interns, upper school kids who were going as chaperones, well, as, assistant chaperones on the 4th grade trip. And they set up a Twitter account called Williamsburg Trip, and then they all had credentials for it and posted as themselves to this one account that all the parents could then follow. Because students don't necessarily want random people following them on social media. We don't really want to expose our students to that.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see here. What other questions? Oh, now you've been doing this for a while. Any tips or tricks that you want to share or could share about using Instagram at a school?
Well, it's interesting when you were talking about scheduling posts. That's something that we've thought about. Lunchtime is a great time to post for upper school kids because they'll get out their phones at lunch and scroll through and look at things. Middle school, not so much because they're not supposed to be on their phones, and we don't really want to be catching people out. And right after school is a good time. And then evening, I kind of feel like they should be doing their homework rather than looking at our pictures on Instagram.
Yeah. Although I think this, the younger kids, they work differently than you and I would.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what I would do if I had all this when I was in school.
I know.
I would have been in trouble.
Yeah. But I'm a grown-up.
I think I'm a grown-up. I guess that's the best.
I think two things actually that have been really, really positive having an Instagram account. One has been that it's gotten a lot of teachers involved in helping us share things that are happening in their classrooms and on their teams and at practice. I have never had success really, truly, with getting teachers in a sort of global sense to share pictures and content to the website. Even though it may not be that hard and it doesn't take that many steps, it's a lot to ask, it feels like. And whereas with Instagram, and especially if you've got it linked up with a hashtag or you're following each other, they're able to take pictures of something that they're doing in their classroom, spur of the moment, and share them. And it also may be teachers can be really modest, and they're not necessarily going to call you and say, come over and take pictures. I'm doing this really cool project about measuring with my math class. But they'll take pictures of it and share them with the kids.
Okay.
So I think it's engaged teachers and allowed us to see more of the daily life of the school. And there were a lot of pictures that went into the Viewbook that were taken by our middle school and upper school deans, just passing classrooms and seeing something and knowing the kind of things that we were looking for, and just snapping pictures and sharing them that way.
Okay. Now, well, we've talked about this, but do you guys have a phone policy at school? Smartphone policy, I think.
Yeah, we do. So lower and middle school kids are not allowed to use them during the school day.
Okay.
I don't even know. Lower school kids may not even be allowed to bring them to school, but middle school kids have to put them in their lockers. And then upper school kids, they may use them for something in class, and in which case the teachers will say you can get out your phones, but otherwise they need to keep them put away. Some of our upper school teachers have actually built cell phone hotels, and the biology teacher has cell phone biomes this year, so the kids can put their cell phones in the tundra.
That's a great idea. That's fun. Kind of as we wind down here, and you've kind of alluded to this, do you have any new projects for this year?
We're using, in terms of Instagram, we used it a little bit to introduce a couple of the new faces in the faculty and to share summer works. They did this really, really cool classroom in the upper school that's a combination of technology and art, and called the Collaboratory. So that was a quick, fun way to share it without, I didn't know all the details of the project at that point, but I knew it was happening, and I could see what was there, and just to get the kids excited about something new when they came back.
So as we wind down here, Rebecca, kind of what else? Did I forget to ask something? Is there something else you should share or something else our listeners should hear?
Well, I guess the another way that we're hoping to use Instagram is just to let our students know some of the things that we're sharing about their experience. I don't know if that makes sense, but students are so involved in what's actually happening in their day, in their classes. And it's Instagram is a really fun way to let them know about the other things that are happening across campus, about broader initiatives, how something that they are doing maybe fits into the bigger picture. And it's also a nice way to let as I said, we have 2 campuses, for the older and the younger students to see what's happening on each other's campuses. It's been nice to see that interaction.
That's great. Well, Rebecca, as we wind down here, I can't thank you enough. That the Viewbook project, I think is one of the coolest things I've heard of in a long time. And again, as a reminder, everybody, I will have links to kind of everything that we talked about, and hopefully the digital Viewbook and the Instagram account and all that stuff in the show notes. So, Rebecca, thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Rebecca as much as I did, and I hope that you like the idea of an Instagram Viewbook as much as I did. I really think that's a wonderful idea, and the possibilities are really endless when you think about combining social media, traditional print, or traditional media, students, crowdsourcing. It really gets me excited. So I'd like to leave you today with 3 things. The first is, if you're out and about listening to this show, you can access the show notes and what we talked about by going to SchneiderB.com/12, just the number 12. If you like the show, if I could ask a favor, by having you go to SchneiderB.com/love, it'll pre-populate a tweet that you can send out in support of the show. And finally, in order to get the show higher rankings in iTunes, if I could ask you to leave an honest review. If you like the show, great. If you don't like the show, that's fine too. But an honest review will really help me out. So thanks a lot for listening, and until next time.